the Todd Family YouTube video, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this Thursday evening, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure to give the video a like, a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. I really hated to come on here right now because of the NFL being so popular and NFL having their kickoff tonight, but the Cowboys and the Eagles have just about reached halftime. Good evening, Kevron. Glad to have you here, as always. Matter of fact, they might be at halftime by now, but I know that when I got up and got ready to come in here to start the video, they only had like a minute and a half to go in the first half, so I'm going to try to get on here and be done by the time they start the third quarter. I know NFL has a really short halftime compared to college and high school. Hey there, Marcus. Glad to have you here as always, but want to talk some college football tonight. You know, I always try to come on here once the football season starts, either on Thursday or Friday, and tell you about all the intriguing games coming up this weekend. Now, of course, you know, last weekend with it being Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, I had to stretch it out into a couple of videos, but now it's back to normal. I don't discuss all the games, just the games that on paper either look like they'll be interesting games or games that mean something. For example, there's 4 games tomorrow night, and all 4 games look like they're going to be blowouts. All 4 games should be blowouts, but more than likely they're not all going to be blowouts. More than likely 1 or 2 of them will probably be fourth quarter games, but on paper they look like they're blowouts. So we're not going to discuss those games. But there's not a lot of fantastic games compared to, you know, last weekend. But man, there was so many good games and great games, you know, in week 1 that, you know, you can't have 2 straight weeks with that many good games on the schedule. Hey there, birthday cake. Glad to have you here. I think it's the first time I've seen your name in the comments section. If it's your first time being here, thank you for being here. Feel free to give the video a like and a thumbs up. And if it is your first time being here, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends, tell your family about the channel. But there's a lot of games that on paper I think will be very interesting. They're not going to get all the hype and the publicity of the games from last weekend, but I think a lot of these games are going to be very good games. And as always, we'll start in the noon time slot. The ESPN noon game is Illinois and Duke. A lot of people have Illinois as a fringe playoff team this year. I did a video on them, and I've got them going 9-3. Now, for a lot of teams, 9-3 is good enough to be in the playoffs, but Illinois doesn't have a great football tradition, so I don't think if they go 9-3, they'll make the playoffs. But for Illinois football, 9-3 is a really good season, and I think Duke is doing what a lot of programs should do. I mean, Duke decided, you know what, we might be a basketball school, but we're going to take football serious. They've upgraded the stadium, and everybody thought that when David Cutcliffe, you know, retired, since they were so good under him, that they were going to go back to being, you know, the old 90s Duke, early 2000s Duke. But under Mike Elko, they were good. Under Manny Diaz in his first year, they were good. Then they went out and paid a buku of money to get Darian Minson, the transfer portal from Tulane, to be their quarterback. Duke is taking football serious, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Duke win 8 or 9 games again this year. But Illinois Duke's going to be a good game on Saturday. And then we have the Cyhawk Trophy, also at noon on Fox, Iowa State. Now, on paper, Iowa State's the better team, but the majority of the years that Matt Campbell has been Iowa State's head coach, Iowa State has the better talent. And most years, somehow, some way, Iowa finds a way to win the game. That game is always slugfest. It's always low scored. It's always a fourth quarter game. If you just like good old fashioned football, that's always a good game to watch. On the CW network, we have Baylor and SMU. Baylor needs this win badly, and they need to show they can stop a running quarterback badly because, hey there, Jalen. Glad to have you here because last week, Baylor's offense wasn't great, but it was okay. But Dave Aranda's supposed to be a defensive genius, and Baylor ain't played defense in about 2 years now. And they couldn't stop Jackson Arnold at all. Hey there, Tara. Glad to have you here. Elias, glad to have you here. And if they can't stop SMU Saturday, they're in for a long season. Hey there, Rotten Milk. Glad to have you here, and I appreciate that. This is my accent. There's not a doggone thing I can do about it. Some folks like it, some don't, but unfortunately, it's just my accent. But nevertheless, regardless, glad to have you here. Rotten Milk Retro Gamer, glad to have you here because Baylor's going to play 4 or 5 scrambling quarterbacks this season in the Big 12. And they looked bad last week. If they don't stop Kevin Jennings Saturday, Baylor might go from being a Big 12 favorite to looking at being 6-6. Thank you for subscribing and liking the channel, Retro Gamer. I really appreciate that. And tell your friends, tell your family about the channel. Also at noon on ESPN2, we have a non-conference conference game. Makes 0 sense. We have Virginia and NC State. This is 2 ACC teams, but it's not an ACC game. It's a non-conference game. Both teams had a scheduling open for a week 2 non-conference game, so they scheduled each other. So the loser of this game will fall to 1-1, but they'll still be 0-0 in the ACC. And I am from Georgia, Rotten Milk. Thank you for asking. That's why I have the bad Southern accent. I'm from Georgia. And then we also on ESPNU have Central Michigan at Pittsburgh. Now this game may not be very good. Hey there, Roe. Glad to have you here. The only reason I wrote it down is because, Pittsburgh under Narduzzi always looks like they're going to be an average football team, and sometimes they are, and then sometimes they sneak up and win 8 or 9 games, and you wonder how in the world they do that. But they played Duquesne last week, so we know nothing about Pittsburgh. So Central Michigan's a little bit better than Duquesne. Then the CBS Sports Network. Hey there, DCOM. Glad to have you here. We have Liberty and Jacksonville State. The only reason this game is worth mentioning is because with Boise State losing and with Army losing, Liberty is one of the group of 5 teams that'll have a chance to make the playoffs. They never get the publicity of an Army and a Boise State and a Memphis and a Navy. But if they go 12-0, there's a pretty good shot that Liberty gets the group of 5 playoff spot. 3:30 on CBS, Oklahoma State and Oregon. Now this game may not be close. I personally don't think Oregon is going to miss a beat. I think they're going to be a top 5 team all year long, but a lot of people are questioning Oregon because they lost so much after last year, including the quarterback. But last week they played some elementary school team. So this test Saturday, even though I think Oklahoma State is average team at best, they are better than who Oregon played in week 1. So we might find out a little bit more about Oregon, but not a whole lot. And then we have Clemson and Troy on the ACC network. And no, I didn't write this game down because it's Clemson, because there are some games that Clemson plays that I don't write down. Like, for example, later on this year they play Furman. I'm not going to talk about that game unless it comes around and Clemson's 4-6. Then I might talk about it, but not unless that happens. But this game Saturday, I'm intrigued by because I know it's Troy, so I know that Clemson could score 300 points, and people are going to say, it's just Troy. It's just Troy. I understand that. I get that. So there's nothing they're going to do Saturday that's going to make people feel better about the team and the season. But there are things they can do to make them feel worse. And, last week we had no running game at all. Didn't try. But is that because we have no confidence in the running backs? No confidence in the running back coach? Or just don't want to run? But if we play Troy Saturday and we can't run the ball against Troy, we're in for a long season because you're not beating any team worth a dang when you're one-dimensional. And everybody said going into last year that Clemson had no running game, and sure enough, last year when Phil Maffa got hurt, we became one-dimensional. If we can't run the ball against Troy, although I think Clemson will beat Troy, but if it's a close game because they try to run the ball and they can't run the ball, Georgia Tech's going to beat them, Louisville's going to beat them, SMU's going to beat them, Florida State's going to beat them, the Gamecocks are going to beat them, because you can't be one-dimensional and beat anybody worth a darn. You just can't do it. We got Ole Miss and Kentucky on ABC, and I think Kentucky is flat out garbage. I said before the season that, if Kentucky gets to 5 wins, it's a good season. They might be one of the worst or the worst Power 4 conference team. They're garbage. Zach Calzada is terrible. They played Toledo in week 1, and he was, I think, 10 for 23 for 85 yards against Toledo. But Kentucky sucked last year, and they beat Ole Miss. So I think Ole Miss is going to come out Saturday and try to put up 100 points to get revenge on losing that game. Last year, that's the ABC 3:30 game. And then we have ESPN2 at 3:30, Kansas and Missouri. Now, most folks don't know that this is probably the two teams that hate each other more than anybody else in college athletics. But these two teams actually stopped playing each other, I think, in 2000 or 2001 because the rivalry got so bad that they were afraid that players and fans and coaches were going to get killed. So they stopped playing it. I mean, these two teams hate each other. But unfortunately, you've got Kansas, who's generally good at basketball and nothing else. And then you have Missouri, who is average at every sport but not great at any sport. And now you see Missouri finally getting good at football, and Kansas has a chance to win the Big 12 this year. This will actually be a good game, and I just hope that nobody gets injured, whether it's a player or a coach or a fan, with this rivalry. But these two teams despise each other. I think Missouri is the better team, but I think Kansas has the better quarterback. Should be a good game, but I think Missouri will win it in the end. And then we have UAB and Navy, and that's another game that is interesting because Navy has a chance at that Group of 5 playoff spot. Now that we have Boise State and Army with the loss, we need to follow Liberty, Navy, and Memphis, because one of those 3 teams, as long as they run the table, will get that Group of 5 playoff spot. Now, if Liberty loses and Navy loses and Memphis loses, then you never know. And then 7:30 on ABC, Michigan and Oklahoma. This should be a very, very, very good game. I have my doubts against Oklahoma because their offensive line was their problem last year, and I'm not sure it's any better at all this year. If it is better, it's just a skosh better, slightly better. But Oklahoma is the home team. I trust Brent Venables with his defense. Even though Bryce Underwood looked good last week, it's a little better competition this week for Bryce Underwood. So I think Oklahoma wins, but this could easily be a 17-14, 17-12, or 14-10 kind of game. But I think it'll be a good old-fashioned slugfest. And then we have Army and Kansas State. That's the 7 o'clock game on ESPN, with Army losing to Tarleton State in week 1. Army needs this win big time. They do not want to start the season 0-2. And, of course, they paid Tarleton State to play them, and then they got beat. So it's bad enough to lose, but it's got to be even worse when you pay the other team to come play you, and then they beat you. And Kansas State had to score in the last minute last week to beat North Dakota, so that should be a good game. 7:30 on ESPN2 is Arizona State and Mississippi State. Arizona State, they lost Scatabo, who was their running back. Even though they brought their quarterback back, everybody thinks that they're going to take a step back without Scatabo. I guess we'll find out Saturday. I think they'll beat Mississippi State pretty easily. 7:30 on the ACC network is Vanderbilt and Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, ever since Brent Pry became their coach, almost every game they lose by one score. I think last year, out of all their losses, only 2 of them were by more than one score. I mean, they play good with everybody, and they hang with everybody, but they find a way to lose. But I think Vanderbilt's about the same level they are, so that should be a good competitive football game. 8 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network, we have UCLA and UNLV. That game's only intriguing because UNLV's defense has looked pitiful so far, and UCLA got destroyed by Utah last week. Utah could have scored 90 had they wanted to. If UCLA loses to UNLV Saturday, they're in for a long season. And, of course, the NFL started tonight. Right now, I'm sure it's halftime. We have the Cowboys and the Eagles started at 8:20 Eastern Time. And then tomorrow night we have the Chiefs and the Chargers. And D-Kong, I'm guessing you meant to say you're getting close to your girl. I'm not sure what Gil means, so I'm guessing you meant girl. And then the Chiefs and Chargers is a YouTube exclusive game. So I guess you just get on YouTube and type up Chiefs versus Chargers and it'll come up. But there's no TV needed for tomorrow night's game, which is good because everybody has YouTube. But also, that should be a very good football game. Any thoughts on any of this? Please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. I just got back from the grocery store, and the kid bagging my stuff asked me if I wanted paper or plastic. And I said, I don't care. You decide. He looked at me straight in the face, and he said, you have to pick. Baggers can't be choosers. And Max Savage, I'm glad you feel that way. I don't know if I agree or not. I think South Carolina's about the same level as they were last year. I think the quarterback is phenomenal. He's phenomenal. But they just don't have enough offensive weapons around him. I mean, they struggled last week against the Hokies to move the ball. And Nick Harbor's the fastest football player I've ever seen, but he can't catch. If he can catch the ball consistently, then their offense is fine. All they got to do is send Harbor deep, and nobody can cover him, but he can't catch. Until he catches the ball consistently, they just don't have any wide receivers, and they don't have any running backs that I really trust. So I think their offense is about the same level as last year, maybe a little bit better. But I think their defense is going to be a little bit worse. They were 9-3 last year. I could easily see them being 9-3 or 8-4 again this year. And if that's the case, that's going to be a top 15 season, but still not good enough for the playoffs. Hey there, Ima. Glad to have you here. Been a while since I've seen your name in the comment section, so glad you're back. But until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you